Welcome back to Team FastEddy. Today we're going to rebuild the differential in a Losi 5ive-T. There are 3 differentials in a Losi and they all rebuild pretty much the same way. There are a few little differences between the 3 which we'll go over. We're also going to try to pass to you guys some little tricks and tips that you may not know about for getting a nice smooth diff. So get out all your pieces and parts and let's get building on this thing. The diffs, like I said, there's 3 of them, a front, a center, and a rear. What we're working on today is going to be the it's going to be the front diff. One of the differences between the 3 is that they all use a different ring gear on them. This is the front ring gear, and it's a fairly shallow ring gear. The rear is a little bit deeper, and then the front uses a spur gear. So you will have to make sure that you are using the right ring gear for whichever diff you're rebuilding. Also, the difference comes in the cups. As you can see, this cup is rounded all the way around, and they'll work on the fronts and the rears, and the center have flat cutouts for in this area right here for the brake to ride on. So you're going to again want to make sure that you're using the proper cup for the diff. Otherwise they all do rebuild the same. It's essential when you're rebuilding your diffs that you use a good bearing and make sure that your bearings are good if you're going to reuse the ones that you have. We're going to use the Team FastEddy bearing kit and grab 2 of the flanged bearings that we're going to need for the rebuild out of the kit. First part we're going to do is we're going to take the flanged edge and face it towards the inside or towards the gear and slide it over just like so. At that point we're going to take the cup and we're going to slide it down through the center hole. That's how it looks on the back. From there we're going to use one of the little O-rings, and we're going to want to lube that up if they're not already lubed. It doesn't take that much. We're just going to use a little bit of shock fluid and lube them up. That way they don't rip or tear and they slide into the little recesses a lot easier. We're going to go ahead and slide that right over the shaft and sink it down into the little hole. From there we're going to use one of our larger washers that's in the kit. What we've done with ours, because we do have a pin that slides around on the top, which I'll show you in a minute, is we've lapped this just using some sandpaper on a wet sandpaper on a flat surface, and we've sanded them down so it's exactly smooth on both sides. And then we've also polished them, which is an optional step for you, but what it does is just allows a lot smoother operation of the diff. We're going to go ahead and slide that down over the top of the O-ring. We're going to take one of our pins and slide it through the hole. Very straightforward. At this point what we're going to want to do is rotate everything and make sure that it's smooth and that there's no excessive play in there. Very simple. The pin is a little bit loose and it may slide around, so just keep an eye on that. We're going to place this larger gear over the top just for now to show you where it goes, but we're going to install it a little bit differently. This is going to bring me to another thing that we do. The bottom portion of this slides and can make contact with the metal on the gear. So what we've done again is we've lapped this to make it smooth, and we've also polished it. We've done that on both of the larger gears. We've also used a wire brush on a bench grinder, and we've gone through each and every tooth and made sure that there is no sharp edges or fragments or anything in there. And then we used a buffing wheel on our bench grinder to polish the gears. So if you were to feel this gear as compared to a stock gear, it's all smooth and there's no sharp edges on it. So that's another thing that you can do to help make the gear a lot smoother inside. What we're going to do is take a look, and you can see the area here for the cross pin to drop into. So when we do drop these down on, we're going to want to make sure that they make contact with the pin, and the pin is contained inside so that it does lock the gear together. We're essentially going to do the same thing in the cup. Going to put our bearing on, again with the flange to the inside. Going to drop our cup through, just like so. Then we're going to put our O-ring inside. Make sure that it slides down inside the groove. And then we're going to put our washer over the top of that. Now we need to get the pin into the little hole. And what we're going to do is align the hole with one of the flat edges here where it's widest on the case. So we're going to line that up. We're going to go ahead and drop the pin down inside. And I like to use a little needle nose pliers, but you can do it by hand if you want. We're going to slide that pin in. I got something going on here. It's wanting to seize up on me and bind, so let me take a look and I'll be right back. Alright, well, we got the problem figured out, and what it was is I didn't have the gasket pushed all the way down in, and it was pinching, and the metal washer was rising up a little bit too high. But you want to get that in, you want to make sure that it rotates easily and properly without binding, and that there's not a whole bunch of play in the shaft. So we have these two built. Again, we're going to take this one and we're going to drop our gear down inside and make sure that it fits firmly and drops down onto the cross pin. And you can see that it rides flush. Now comes the fun part. We're going to install the spider gears. It's actually not difficult at all. There's two cross pins that go in, and when put together, they're going to look like this. There's a little notch in both of them, and those two notches, when it's inside, fit together just like a cross. To start building it, we're going to take one of our spider gears, and again on the spider gears we've lapped the bottom so it's smooth, and we've used our wire brush and our buffing wheel to polish it up nice and smooth. We're going to put two of these on one of the shaft, face them nose in, just like so that the beveled portion goes in. We've also polished and lapped the little shims that we're going to put on next. And those little shims go one on each side. And then we're going to put the shaft holders in. If you take a look at the shaft holder, they're flat on one side and rounded on the other. We're going to put the flat side in towards the washer that we just put on there. We're going to do one on each side. You'll also notice that these little holders are longer or taller than they are long. And as we put those in, we want the tall portion facing up. So get that all aligned, and if they're not perfectly aligned, that's okay, we'll deal with it. And we're just going to drop the gear set in, and we don't have it set up yet, but we just dropped it in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push to the outside with one until it seats the holder into the little square area there, and then we're going to do the same with the second one, just like so. We're going to want to make sure that the notch is pointing up. We're going to rebuild the second one the same way. We're going to put a gear, a shim, flat side in on the holder, a gear, a shim, flat side in on the holder. We're going to drop this one in the opposite direction. just like so. As you can see, we haven't gotten anything lined up yet. We just kind of dropped it in there. Now what we're going to do is just the same. Going to push to the outside with one until it lines up. Going to push to the outside with the second one until it lines up. And then you can see that my you can see that my pins little grooves are not lined up yet. So I'm going to reach in there and gently spin that pin until it drops down. That's all there is to it. At this point, you can put your finger across the top and go ahead and spin your gears. Make sure it's all working properly and nothing is binding up. Now comes the fun part. We're going to fill it up. This is a front, and we're going to go stock and use a 7000 weight. And we're going to put the oil in just until it comes to the top of the crosshairs. You don't want to overfill it. It looks to be plenty. As you can see, we filled it just past the top of the crosshairs with Diff fluid. That should be plenty. You want to make sure that you don't overfill it. Okay, now what we're going to do is, this likes to fall off when you put them in. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this one right down inside there. Just like so. We're going to put our gasket into the gear and line up the holes. If you're just doing a rebuild and you don't want to reuse your gasket, you can go to Team Gonads or TGN distributors, and they sell just the gasket separately. Okay, so now that the gasket's in and the holes are aligned, make sure your pin is aligned. And what we're going to do is lay this on top so that it matches up with the pin, with the cross on the top. Woo! I think I might have to glue that on there. Do it quickly. There we go. I'm going to spin this around until I feel the pin drop down. There we go. And now I'm going to spin this around until the holes align. And now our diff is together. You want to look in here, make sure that there's no gaps, and that everything is fully seated. At this point, we're going to go ahead and put our 4 screws in. And you're only going to want to put them in just until they touch. We're not going to tighten them up. So very quickly, we're just going to run this in until it touches. You're just going to want to do about a quarter turn on each one. And just keep going in circles until it's tightened up. You don't want to over tighten them and strip them out, but you don't want them to be loose so they leak. We'd like to thank you for stopping by Team FastEddy. You can visit our YouTube channel and subscribe at youtube.com/Team FastEddy. You can get all of our latest reviews. You can go to Team FastEddy and get them. Great forum, which is rclargescale.com. We go there daily and answer questions for people, and all of our videos are hosted there as well. The gasket that we used is available at teamgonads.com or TGN distributors, and be nice to have a couple of those in your bag for a rebuild. So thank you for stopping by Team FastEddy. We're going to go ahead and put this into our Losi 5 and go hit the track. We're going to check one more time. Oh, so buttery smooth. Go have some fun.